Okay, well, let's get this meeting going. Jen, will you do roll call, please?
Mike Dolson, Tom McDonald,
Here.
Jennifer Finley, here. Jim Molitaire,
Here.
Carol Langford, Danielle Mack,
Here.
Bing Mack, here. James Steele Jr.,
Una.
Martin Charlo,
Present.
Len Tutis, Lanisha Trahan.
Thanks, Jen. Well, as always, let's start this morning off with a prayer. And James, will you do the honor for us? Thank you.
Lemlem Shesu Kali Kekul and Sutan. Father, we thank you for this day. We ask for your protection over our people, those that have lost loved ones and those that are ill or in sickness that need your comfort. We ask for your guidance and wisdom over our decisions today as we make decisions that affect all of our people. Thank you and guide our discussion. Amen.
Thank you, James. Just start us out right. Appreciate that. We have our council minutes from December 3rd for your consideration.
Mr. Chair, on page 4 of 8, I added a little more to my discussion about Swinomish program and some of my comments. So just, I think it's in red there. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Abby,
Go ahead, Martin.
sorry, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chair, Council. Abby, the part with page 1 on with Dolson's, I'll check with them later, but the part about him asking us about day planners, I don't think really needs to be in there. I mean, even the next discussion about the event in Helena, I don't know if that should, Carol, that needs to be in there or not.
Thank you, Martin. Definitely, we could remove the day planner topic for sure.
And the next one too was just a check on a date.
Yeah, that was the date too. Yeah, you're right. We take both of those out. Thanks, Martin. Good catch. Is there any other additions, corrections to the minutes? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the December 3rd minutes as corrected. Motion by James, second by Martin. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor? I think it's Carol. Unanimous? Yep, unanimous. Okay, we have today's agenda. Is there any additions or modifications to the agenda? We are going to move the maintenance item to the afternoon. Go ahead, James.
Just appreciate a report on y'all's meeting yesterday in Helena.
Okay, we'll do a report, trip report for Helena. Any other? Go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah, I have to leave at 2:30 for a medical appointment today. Just want to let you know.
Thank you. I think we'll still have a quorum. Any other items? Seeing none, I would accept accept the motion to approve today's agenda with modifications. Yeah. Motion by Martin. Second by Jimmy. Any further discussion? See none, all is in favor? Unanimous. Len just came in, so abstained? Okay. Len abstained. And of course, Mike is chairman's over at a staff meeting right now, I think. He'll be here shortly.
After he comes back, he's
Tribal
going
Health?
on a Zoom meeting for Columbia.
Okay,
So-
so he'll be running late, okay. Okay. All right, we don't have any walk-ins, and so we will go ahead and briefly do a trip report on our meeting with Helena. We had some agenda items there. Spent the good portion of the discussion with the Lieutenant Governor, who was present, and staff. The governor was out doing his Giving Tuesday or Wednesday, I guess it was a carryover, giving money away from his salary. Well, he wasn't in attendance, but we spent a little bit of time on Public Law 280. And then we spent some time on the Water Compact funding. And we spent time on the proposing a gaming agreement with the state. And so, not at least in my perspective, there wasn't much change in the Public Law 280 other than the state Supreme Court ruling that states that basically the state government is not obligated to pay for Public Law 280 on the Flathead Indian Reservation. And so that changes the paradigm a little bit with Lake counties seeking reimbursement for Public Law 280 costs. So that's a change. And then we talked about proposals that might come forward with the state legislature for funding long-term law enforcement and preventive services on the reservation. So some discussion with that. I'll leave it up to other council members if they want to add to that topic for Public Law 280. None? Okay. And then we were able to talk about the Water Compact and discussion points that both Danielle and Martin were able to bring forward on the irrigation project irrigator meeting they had the other night, and reported to Lieutenant Governor on comments made in association to the state's contribution to the Water Compact and the availability of those funds that the irrigators might be able to use for O&M charges that are coming ahead. And Lieutenant Governor reaffirmed that that's not acceptable, and that is not something that can be done with that funding. And so that took place. And then we confirmed that we were good with the escrow agreement for the state's contribution to the tribe for what they owe on the availability date for that, and a joint account that we will draw out of when that date is appropriate. So I think that was about it with that project, unless anybody wants to add anything to that. Yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
To that process. So do we need to obtain the state's permission to draw money out of there?
The money is only available once that date is hit, and then we can, and then of course they're keeping the interest from it. So the goal is to basically set the money aside since it's been appropriated through the governor's budget, and make sure it's available and it can't be clawed back by any action between now and the date that it's due. So when the due date comes, we will have full access to that funding. It'll be transferred.
When is the due date? Do you know right offhand?
It's end of next year. I don't know. Is it December 31st? Yeah. I mean, we really wanted it ahead of time because of inflationary things, and it was earmarked for the Little Bitterroot drainage for improvement projects to the watershed. And, because as time goes on, inflation hits it and stuff, and just wasn't available. And they were trying to make it appropriate out of the governor's budget, which they finally did. And so that's when it'll come forward. Likewise, I think the other 30 million for the state contribution to the other betterment project is the same way. Yeah, go ahead, Martin.
I guess maybe I'll give a quick report on the irrigator meeting as well then. That was over at SKC. The superintendent of FIP was there, facilitated the meeting, answered all questions, did a very good job of explaining what the rate increases were. There's going to have to be layoffs because of the funding issue. There's a lively discussion based on what the lieutenant governor had told the irrigator's attorney, and they believed that they had the interest off of this money that was the 30 million was supposed to be appropriated by the end of next year. The language they used was it was a negotiation, which it was not. And so that made other staff upset that they weren't at the table as FIP negotiating this money that isn't a negotiation. So that's the issue that we brought to the governor, was that confusion. And at the end, there was a decision made. I talked to the FIP director, and he's going to come in and give a report in 2 weeks, because next week is off the table and I don't think we could get him in today. So he'll be coming in. And again, yeah, kudos to him and his staff for keeping the meeting going as quickly as he could.
Thank you, Martin. Then we spent time on the proposal we sent in for a gaming compact with the state in regards to lottery, because we're keeping the same course that we have with existing gaming, and add lottery, because the state offers lottery. We can basically entertain the same thing through a compact with the state. And the proposal we sent in was met with approval by the state. And so our staff and their staff, particularly the lieutenant governor, she's our lead administrator in this. She did have her gaming department head there and the lead staff person to answer questions that they had about what we were planning on doing. And it all went well. They offered any additional services they could provide for us, starting something up based on the lessons learned from the state, in particular like Montana Millionaire, scratch tickets, all those kind of games, whether it's Montana Cash or those kind of things. So it was all good. It was a really good session, I thought. They had some good advice to get started, and that went well. So we'll try to codify something immediately and then entertain that with the federal process, which requires a 45-day wait period from the feds if they deny it. If they don't deny it, then it happens after 45 days. And we probably could have something in play this summer. Go ahead, Len.
Okay, so they understood that this would only take place on tribal establishments, right?
Oh, definitely. That was it's very expressed very well by us that this will be at tribally owned facilities only at this point in time, and on the reservation. Okay. So it'll be our outlets, probably our casinos, yeah. Quicksilver would be another outlet. Anything that we own, the government owns, to maximize our profits and availability. So, yeah, think of what we're going to call our Montana Millionaire. I asked them if they trademarked that, and they didn't respond to that. So we'll have, Flathead Lake Millionaire. I don't know, something, or $100,000 something first, whatever we think we can afford. But it's a good start, and it's a good revenue stream, and it was nice to have the long-term executive of that program in the meeting with us. And we have his contact information. Carol obtained that, and So we'll be able to do some consulting with him. And he just didn't want to drive over here in the middle of the winter. So I don't know, maybe we'll do a Zoom thing. But he's retiring next August from the state lottery office. So we want to utilize his services as much as possible. So it went pretty well. I don't know what will, looks like a solid thing. I did, the director of the state lottery, I tried to give him my routing number to my bank account so that when I win the Montana Millionaire or one or more of them, that they could go a direct deposit. Any other comments on that? There was one other thing the lieutenant governor brought up. I can't remember what it was. Oh yeah, there was a state land exchange. Yeah. So she actually had a different proposal for us to consider, and so Melissa et al. will be bringing that in. So it's another way to consider compensation for the mineral rights that they are keeping on land that they provide for the swap. So, all right. Any other items on the trip? It was nice to get in the sunshine, get out of the inversion. That was nice. So we'll jump into our first item, which is Ruth. Specs, Ruth.
That's correct. Okay, so with them. Modification 3 to your fiscal 25 total allocations. Had a lot of stuff moving in this time. Starting off with our general fund. I needed to increase the program allocation for the disaster emergency services. They did a benchmarking of the coordinator position and increased the salary by quite a bit. So we had to add in 20,000. Being how our per capita is presently allocated more than what is needed, we simply reduced that, added that into the disaster program for a net increase of 0, the general fund. And third party, you recently approved the Tribal Health Department's proposal for increased services, buildings, and other types of expense. So that increase is made here. In the BIA Compact, Indian Affairs Compact, we're adding in the fiscal 24 carry forward programs of 18.7 million in total. One of the biggest ones there is for the 477 program, which is carrying forward just over 6 million. In Indian Health Service, same thing, we're carrying forward those earmarked programs for a total of 17.6 million. In contracts and grants, we're posting all of those increased awards to the various programs, hundreds of programs, literally, for a total increase of 19.3 million. Total increase of all of those funds is 55.7, and the total increased allocations is moving to 200 and I can't move my can't move the screen down. There we go. Going to 284,060,916. By fund, the general fund is now just over 71 million when you total general fund and the dedicated trust. Third party is now at 21.3 million. Water compact remains at 65.3. IHS self-governance is now at 52.6. Indian Affairs self-governance is 42.8. Settlement, which is per mitigation, SKQ mitigation and the super fund remaining at 4.2. Contracts and grants now at 26.6 million.
Motion by Martin to approve the resolution, modification 3 to the fiscal year 2025 total appropriation. Second by Len. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor? Unanimous. Thanks, Ruth.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Zach.
Zach and Bradley.
Zach and Bradley. Have a new face. I don't think we've seen Bradley before.
Oh, yeah, that's part of, it's part of the thing we wanted to introduce Bradley to you. He's our engineering manager. He's part of our executive team. Bradley Couture.
Oh, well, welcome. Welcome, Bradley.
Very nice to meet all of you. Like to start off by saying thank you very much for your time to not only allow me to speak in this capacity, but to consider our request. Zach, how would you like me to start?
Come on, yeah, come on, let's get to it. I know they got a busy, full agenda I seen.
We have a
Did we get the?
While Zach is finding that, I'm our visual aid and anyways, the reason why we're here this morning is we have a proposed fire mitigation activity. Anyways, we've developed a scope of work to resolve some of the power feed installation from essentially just outside of Peatco in Big Arm, Montana, routing that power up to Jetty Point Towers. In association with the reclamation work that's going to take place would be the mitigation of forest fuels. On screen, you'll see a red arrow directing you to the location of the pile in front of us. I've kind of got a zoom in. We have an 80-foot by 40-foot by approximately 20-foot tall large pile of woody debris. This is probably our greatest concern related to the activities. Anyways, in association with performing the reclamation out there, we'd like to have these slash piles burned in order to eliminate that fuel on the forest floor. This particular area is rather steep in nature, and if a wildfire was to start, it would be very difficult to get in front of it and essentially suppress the spread of that wildfire. Anyways, under contract, we have a contractor, Indian Preference Contractor, who is going to not only perform the recontouring, but also support, monitor, and take responsibility for the potential for wildfire starts. We have a advantageous season in terms of moisture content on the forest floor. However, we are under a current ban for open burning, which began December 1st and extends through February 28th. So what we're requesting is a waiver from that particular ban of operations to allow the controlled burning of the slash associated with reclamation on this property. I know that the contractor has manpower, equipment, and resources available that he'll be using to support those burn activities, consisting of 2 skid gens with mobile 425-gallon tanks, pumps, 500-foot hose reels, so that they're able to monitor those controlled burns and then ensure that they're put out and that there's no spread of ambers during that burn activity. The contract period is essentially from Monday morning, if we're allowed such waiver, through December 31st, when the contractor must complete those activities. So it would be a finite period of time.
And just to add a little bit more backstory on this, this is where we did the Jetty Towers. So if you think of the 4 towers that the council built, one of them was on Jetty Hill. This customer allowed us to run that line up there a jetty on Big Arm, but on the Tompkins property up to the jetty tower so we could get power, get fiber and get everything connected up there about 4 years ago. What we're trying to complete here is to complete our agreement is that we had done this through our right of way and now we're just trying to clean it up. 4 years later, we're trying to finalize and clean it up. So, and what Bradley's talking about, and we understand, the importance of air quality and all that stuff that's going on there. This is the time we can, and it's such a steep thing and a lot of timber there that it's probably the best time to burn that stuff and take care of that. It's a burn pile of, trees that were cut down in our right of way clear out to get that line up to the jetty tower and the fiber there too. So just a little backstory.
Okay. So the right-of-way agreement through this private property, and I assume the tribal land also,
Yep.
requires this level of remediation or cleanup? Is it specific in the right-of-way agreement? And does it allow you to exceed the boundary of the right-of-way agreement to go? I can't imagine where that burn pile is as part of the right-of-way.
You're correct. That is outside of the right of way. My understanding is that in discussions with the property owner in order to facilitate the route that was taken, that these were, I don't want to call them promises, but there was essentially the agreement of what it is that Mission Valley Power would do if the property owner would allow this particular route.
So in you igniting a burn pile on private land outside of your right of way, do you have another written agreement with that landowner to allow that to happen?
That's included in our agreement, the burn pile.
It's in your right of way?
It's not in the right of way. It's not in the right of way agreement, but kind of like what Bradley just brought up, it was part of the
verbal agreement?
verbal handshake agreement when we pushed all that.
Can you get something in writing that allows you to do that?
We can, and that it's still a conversation that we will have with the landowner.
And are you going further? I imagine this goes through tribally owned land. Is the same thing occurring on the tribe's property?
We haven't scoped that out yet, but presumably this would be a very similar approach to the type of reclamation that would take place for the upper segments.
And as we advance our reliability and stability of our power division MVP, is this the protocol that will be used on all buried lines that you would install?
All buried lines, with exception to any of this particular customer's specific requests on like the location of his burn pile. So it would be the template for any of our actions going forward, obviously with some minor modifications depending on what those individual private property owners might request.
So why is this 4 years later? Why didn't this occur at the time of the construction?
Yeah, and that, that's a whole different conversation that I think we'd have to go into executive session to discuss if we could.
Okay, well, just a couple more questions before we go into executive. The burning really is in concurrence with our air quality monitoring program. So when you have an inversion like this, you don't burn.
Okay.
And so you have to have a good, airflow, and depending on whether or not this is above or below the inversion that we're currently facing, you could be in an inversion all of December and you're not going to be burning.
Yeah. No,
So-
we understand that.
Okay.
And some, excuse me, I've made coordinations with Mr. Ashley, I believe it's Randy Ashley, who operates the air monitoring
Air
station
quality,
right
yep.
there on Jetty Point. And so those coordinations, if and when, if presumably we're allowed a waiver, those coordinations would take place to ensure that it's noted on the monitors.
Super. I got one more question.
Yes, sir.
I'll see if any council members ask questions. Why aren't you doing this with your own staff?
We did a calculation of what it would cost for our own staff to do it, and it'd be close to 3 times the cost of contracting with somebody to do it.
Your tree trimming staff is that much more expensive?
Yeah, when we've calculated the time and the cost of doing this, and it would have been 3 times the cost.
So you're saying like tree trimming duties, we should contract all that out?
No, on this specific piece of property, yes.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Martin.
What about the grounds crew that we have?
That's what I was referring to.
I mean, that, even the grounds crew would be that much more expensive to do?
The trainees that we have, that calculation wasn't, we didn't factor in them, but it would still require our people, our equipment.
Yeah, I think to add to that, the ground clearing in terms of dealing with the brush is only one component of the scope of work that we've contracted with. There's a great deal of recontouring with regards to ground surface and then revegetation, reseeding, that's also associated with it. So in the entire scope of work there, although there are some elements that we may have been able to complete it in-house, it just doesn't lend itself to the other subsequent tasks.
So you don't do any reseeding on any disturbed sites you do right now?
Typically, we do reseeding, when we're on, fee lands, when we're in public lands, on the reservation, there is some seeding that's done. However, it's hand spread. It's not quite as intensive as what we're doing here, given the slopes and, some of the grading that we're encountering out there.
It's the same thing with your weed spraying. You guys do weed spraying?
I don't believe we do. No.
I don't think we do.
You don't?
Mhm.
Wow. I know that, you know, and typically in ground disturbance, because it's such an epidemic, is it's kind of a mandatory thing. Best practices would be to treat weeds and seed in disturbed sites so we don't keep spreading knapweed and, you know, all the bad stuff out there. It's an epidemic, so really
Yeah.
it's a full, a lot of things I also do is wash vehicles, you know, try to keep seeds from, they attach to vehicles and equipment.
Right.
And so when one of your pieces of equipment, like a lineman truck, moves from one site to another, they can spread weed seeds.
Right.
And so one of the best standards for trying to take care of noxious invasive plants is to have a wash station. Wash your vehicles before you go to a new site and help prevent the weed.
You know, I think those are all great points, and I'll double check that. I'll double check and make sure we're following all our requirements to not spread those kind of weed diseases throughout the system. I'll double check that, and I'll report to you guys back on that question.
And so if you're doing a contract, wouldn't it be advantageous just to add the tribal land to this at the same time?
Yes, we can. I mean, from an efficiency standpoint, certainly. I don't know if, from a billing standpoint, it would be in our best interest to combine the two. That tends to cloud the issue as to where the work is being done, and it would be hard to separate.
Is it the same line that goes all the way up to the tower?
Yes, sir, it is.
Well, I know a contractor usually charges mobilization fees, et
Yes,
cetera,
sir.
and so you're gonna have to pay that again
Yes, sir.
if you do the tribal land?
You know, and the part on the tribal part is we were working with forestry to see if they would, their input on this, because they were part of the whole thing
Oh,
4
okay,
years
the
ago.
history. Well, maybe we'll go into executive session now. We'll move into executive.
Okay. Thank you.
I believe not, so. I would entertain a motion to grant Bishop Valley Power Authority to burn during our closed season when appropriate with coordination with tribal air quality and tribal forestry. Motion by Martin, second by Bing. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous?
We appreciate your help. We'll come back to you with the second half of the job, the tribal portion all the way to the top.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank
You guys have a great day.
Thank you, Zach. Good to meet you, Bradley.
Very
Thank
nice
you
to
for
meet
your service.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Glenn.
there is, one issue I would like to discuss with council before we get back on the agenda. It'll be very, very brief. This morning I asked, Vernon, our KCC director, to come in this morning. So what is happening is KCC and some community members are in the process of doing some cleanup out at the Black Bear Ranch. And so we wanted to utilize one of our tribal member contractors to start hauling stuff out of there to the dump. So we were going to request to waive the procurement policy and allow our tribal member contractor to do the work for us, which is just essentially hauling garbage to the dump. So with that said, I would just like to make the motion to waive the procurement policy and allow KCC to utilize the tribal member contractor to get the project complete.
I also spoke with Contracts and Grants this morning to see about that, because I thought there was a window for an amount that I could just do the contract with, but he said, I spoke with Vance, and he said, well, just to be sure, it wasn't really all clear through all of it for him either. So he said, just to be clear, just to get it approved for council, and then we can go ahead and get it done.
Martin?
So are we approving just the sole source? And this person has insurance and all the liability requirements and everything that?
He thought he suggested that probably the way we could do it is just get approval just to do a PR and have him do it. But I mean, that's what it would be. It would be kind of, I guess, that's what I thought at first, was that we could just do the waive the, what is it? What would we be waiving? The workman's comp and liability or something like that. And the bidding, I guess.
So how many loads are we talking?
He's gonna be using his truck and trailer and stuff, so there's when One Heart was there, the guy that was there had a bunch of stuff that, well, he just did a bunch of stuff that shouldn't have been done, and so we just gotta haul it out of there.
Wouldn't this be like maintenance's job to do? I mean, I know it's KCC's now, but it seems like one of our programs are
There's a lot of
get the
great,
recovery community to go help out and do it for free. I mean, save some money.
there's a lot of gray areas in between. I find myself going back and forth between maintenance and lands, and we just want to get it done. So we just do it. And plus it's a culturally sensitive area, and we have community members who are aware of all of that. And so we just would just prefer to use them and do it.
So you're talking about doing a personal employment agreement with the individual and then reimbursing him for mileage for his personal vehicle? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, what I told him was, okay, so he had the stuff to do it, and so I told him, okay, put together an estimate of how much it would cost, and it was like a little over 1,000, using his equipment and everything, using his truck and trailer, and him and his brothers would come and do it. Marquise.
Go ahead,
Are
Mark.
are they registered? So they're not registered to the IPO office then either then? The Indian Preference Office?
Indian preference? I thought so. I think so.
Then he would be required to have liability and all those other things as well.
No, if he's registered, he would have all that stuff, I would hope. No, I'm looking back there, not necessarily. I'm looking at behind you, Vernon,
Oh,
to an expert. Talking about Marquise Askin?
yeah.
Oh, well, yeah.
Him and his
expect him to be
brothers are
legal.
big, strong guys and they're gonna get it done, But wanted to get it done, wanted to make sure that they're not out there trying to do it in the snow.
Right, no. Got a motion by Len. Second by Bing. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands. Carol? No? We have 8-4, 1 against Carol. Go ahead, Patty.
Just for full disclosure, Askin is a 1.0 FTE employee with Head Start. So if you do an employment agreement with him, that will put him into overtime.
I think it's a separate thing that they would do on the weekend.
Yeah, I don't know if that makes any difference, Ren.
It still, it would be overtime hours that causes that problem. So just want to make sure that everybody knows that.
We couldn't contract. Wait,
You'd have to do a contract with him, not a personal employment agreement. He needs to be a contractor. You need to do a sole source contract with Marquise.
okay.
I think that's what the motion really was. Okay.
Oh, sorry. I just said Mark. I thought you knew who. Yeah.
I think that's your only way to go forward is the sole source contract. with
Sole
us,
source contract. Okay.
Which
Then-
we approved.
Then I could just let Vance know that. Yeah, he said just to come here and have you approve it, just to make sure that. And he could see it go through on his end.
Approved.
Yeah.
Pardon?
So the minutes should reflect that it was either change the motion to a sole source or that we have to approve that too. Sole source contract.
Okay, so is that another motion? Was the motion like the motion was for a sole source? So make it correct, and then Carol wishes to change her vote, knowing more. Okay, so it'll be unanimous.
Okay. All right.
Get those Askin boys out there and clean that up.
You guys are in a mood this morning.
I tell you, my horoscope said this too. It was.
Kicked out in executive session. Yeah. Oh. All right. Have a good day, everyone.
It's all because this guy didn't show up. That's why. All right, let's get moving on here. We got Gary and Patty. Come on up.
Back on schedule. Good morning, Tribal Council. We'll just be really brief. We are looking to purchase a bus for our Head Start program, and it's a different type of bus that the Office of Head Start just approved. that does not require the CDL. So we'd like to look at purchasing one and see how it is. And then if we like it and it's working for us, then possibly look at applying for funding with the Office of Head Start to purchase a new one. So we had originally had Property and Supply seek out a bid for a brand new one to have it built for us. And then we looked up some used ones. And so we're thinking we're gonna go with the used one, and then they'll modify it to make sure we have the proper restraint systems in it. And it was way less expensive. So if we,
60,000.
yeah, it was 60,000 plus there'll be some to put in the restraints and so.
Carol? Motion? Motion to approve? Go ahead, questions, Martin?
So will this have any kind of warranty on it still? It being used?
I am not sure. I can check on that.
Second by Martin. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor? Unanimous?
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
And Martin, just so that you know, the used bus is coming in under 20,000 miles. So it's very low. But that's a great question. We didn't ask about the warranty. Yeah, should have one that still exists. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Mark? You brought your backup with you today, huh?
Brought the big guns with me.
All right. I'm looking back at her for facts, you know.
No wonder it doesn't work. Good morning, council. I'm requesting, I guess, council approval on a modification to contract 20037 Bureau of Reclamation. This is a agreement with them to provide technical services for the rehab of the Flathead River pumping plant. The current contract is set to expire December 31st. And I would like to extend that by 3 years out to December 31 of 2027 and increase their funding amount by $350,000 to make the total value of this contract now 1.1 million. They have 3 projects in front of them currently. One is the erosion control plan for the hillside behind the pumping plant, trying to get some stabilization there. Technical support on the ongoing rehab of the pumps. They have the equipment that is unavailable to us, such as laser alignment machines and precision measuring equipment to make sure all the tolerances are falling within spec. And the third project that is in front of them is looking at doing a redesign of the pump impellers to possibly be able to move more water while using the current horsepower rating of the motors that are in place. And also the current impellers induce vibration into the penstocks. And we just had a penstock inspection done by them, and the penstocks are still doing well, but the vibration does, as you move further away from the source, which is the pump itself, it travels up the penstocks, it gets worse, and it's starting to shake things apart. So we're having them look at a redesign of the impellers. So that is my request for this morning.
Any questions for Mark? Motion by Danielle to approve the amendment number 3. the agreement with the tribes and the Bureau of Reclamation for Flathead pumping plant work. Is there a second? Yeah, go ahead, Len.
Just out of curiosity, Mark, does the Bureau of Reclamation employ tribal members? Do they have any tribal members on their staff?
That would be a question I cannot answer for you.
Okay. Thought I'd ask. Thanks, Mark.
Second by Martin? No, somebody else want to make a second? Second by Jennifer? Any further discussion? See none, all's in favor? I think that's unanimous. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Len.
In regards to the irrigation project, have all of the easements been secured yet? Where are we at? Where are we with that?
This gets into a whole nother discussion. I'll try to give you a brief overview of it. So the alignment that is proposed for the new pipeline follows existing ditch network. Plus, there's some variation where it makes sense to not utilize it. And what we are now facing is, do we really need to get new easements when the current historic easements are already in place? The current, what's considered historic is a prescriptive, it's undefined. If BIP needs 50 feet for maintenance, that's what they take, that's what they use. By going to a defined amount, now you got 40 feet, that's it. So there's starting to be some pop-up issues like that. We actually have everything in place for the main line to be installed. It's just now looking at, is that really what should be done versus what is being done? The other thing is on individual trust parcels. I can't quote the CFR, but there is a CFR that states reimbursement needs to be made to those individuals for right-of-way for new easement. I need clarification if putting pipe into an existing easement is still considered a historic use of that easement, or is that a new easement, which would require reimbursement for?
Yeah, I understand that, Mark, and reason why I ask is because it kind of really puts you in a unique, complicated situation where they made no money available for you to negotiate for these easements. They said you go out there and get what you can, and so that's why I bring it up.
And I wrote an email to the tribal legal team, which will probably have to get pushed on to the BIA solicitor's office of asking that question. CFR says this, but yet public law that, Section 7 of the compact specifically states that if you are receiving service from FIP, you will at no cost provide this easement. So we have conflicting language, and it's above my pay grade to decide who and what. So yeah, I definitely need some assistance from a solicitor to define that better for me.
Any other questions for Mark? Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
We will take a quick break before we do whisper and carry for the rest of the morning. Okay, is that okay? All right. 10-minute break. All right, we'll come back into session after our break, and we're up with Carrie.
Thank you. Good morning, Vice Chairman, and good morning, Council. Thanks for having me here this morning. I have starting on page 23 of your packet this morning. I have been working with the Nine Pipes Owl Research Institute reached out and proposed a kind of cooperative project with our program, and It's one that we've brought to both of the culture committees and gotten kind of a approval to go forward with it. So we're bringing it to you today to kind of for the final approval for the project. So what they're proposing is, and the second page was kind of just a one pager that kind of highlights and overviews the project. But the Owl Research Institute has some live feed or live streaming cameras that they use to promote education and outreach, conservation monitoring, but it also helps kind of gain some insights into nesting interactions for researchers, but then it's also a really unique and effective tool to get the public really excited about wildlife as well. So it's they're proposing, there's a great gray owl nest on tribal property that they've been monitoring for the last few years. And it's a nest that they don't have, they have a few in the valley, osprey nests, a few short-eared owl nests, and some great owl nests on this live feed channel, but they're hoping to showcase and use this great gray owl nest as part of the explore.org's kind of audience. It's a global audience that gets a lot of unique viewers. If you've ever watched the grizzly bear footage up in Alaska on one of their preserves where they're just at the waterfalls eating all the fish, that's the same kind of explore.org. That's their same kind of organization. And so anyone in the globe can log on to this website and check any of the cameras to see what's going on in there. There's a few on some osprey nests in Missoula as well. One thing that we've talked with the culture committees about is just, or, you know, one of the things that the culture committees wanted to make sure is that, you know, the camera, that there's nothing in the background that could be identifiable as far as location or landmarks. And so, you know, Denver Holt did say that it is really just looking inside of the nest, so there's really no distinguishing landmarks around it. There is opportunity for outreach and education for, you know, our biologists will occasionally go out with the Owl Research Institute and do some outreach for some public events. And there's opportunities with this audience and this channel to do something similar, you know, on camera and have biologists be able to showcase some of our work and our cooperation with our different other departments like forestry, on forest management, and great gray owls. And so it would be a really good tool to be able to share some really neat research and kind of tribal work. And I think.
Go ahead, Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a phenomenal project. I would like to see more. You know, I'm always looking at the Mission Valley Grizz Camp. I would really like to see our wildlife department set something up like that out there, especially out on Millie's Woods and in that area, you know. And so we can have membership access to those and to see exactly what kind of grizzly bears we have lingering out there, because they're huge, you know. But yeah, I strongly support something like this and just having cameras like this all over the reservation for the members to look at, just to show you what kind of beauty we have here, you know.
So the site location is completely not disclosed.
That's correct. Yep.
It's just one nest at this time.
Correct. Yep.
Because when I read through it, it said it was plural nests.
Well, they do have ORI has nests, other nests in the valley on private lands.
Okay.
And this is the only one that's on tribal.
Any other questions from council? Motion by Len to approve the request to partner with the Owl Research Institute and explore.org for a placement of a camera, live feed camera for use for education. Second by Jennifer. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you very much. We'll move on to our next item.
Pesquex-Pecia, we're on page 25 to talk about the 2025-26 CSKT member regulation proposal changes for the coming year. We only have one regulation change potential, and then the rest is date updates from 2025 to 2025. So the first one that we would ask you to vote on is on page, oh, sorry, left-handed scrolling. The first page of the ordinance, Regulation 1, that is the Ferry Basin Wildlife Management Area is closed to antler, head, and horn collecting from January 1st through April 30th of each year to minimize disturbance to big game on critical winter range. The proposal was to remove this regulation for horn and head hunting in Ferry Basin, looking at some of the challenges that there are to enforcement where people will say they're just out walking, but really they're collecting outside of the season. The closure was initially to minimize disturbance to elk during a sensitive time of year. However, they're still being disturbed by members recreating. That is meaning that they're allowed to walk on the road or they're walking through the wood sort of area. So we proposed, also the herds are healthy at this point. They're doing quite well. We're actually getting complaints about too many. And so we were proposing to reduce that. When we went to the culture committees, both culture committees initially said from the start, we want to protect porcupine and we are not really in favor of lifting the restriction on that head hunting in that area. So we kind of talked about it. We did a press release and put some social media out around the time that the annual if the annual season was lifted, and then said, you know, make sure you're mindful of porcupine. They are found in that area. They are found in other areas of the reservation as well. We kind of went back and forth about it. It's kind of a mix between like a social kind of access thing, but there's a cultural or biological reason not to lift it. Because of that kind of mix, we decided to leave that to you all to decide whether we take that regulation to the 30-day public comment and make this a proposed change or not.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's, I'm trying to think, Whisper, who was it, the person that was talking and said down in the Bitter, they have all kinds of porcupine, and it was just kind of amazing to hear all of the reasons why our population is down. But, I think we definitely want to support that effort to maintain that population that we do have. Yeah, because I just, think back as a kid, you'd always, be pulling them out of our dogs, the quills and such. It's been years since I've ever had to do that, but and seeing them unfortunately on the road as a roadkill kind of thing. But we need to realize that there's more our animals and such that need that as well. So I think that's an important consideration.
Any other comments? Are porcupines protected from harvest?
No, not at this time. We did a survey for porcupine, about a 3 winter effort survey about 6 or 7 years ago. And we haven't been able to really pick them up in the forested areas, like, where they traditionally would be. We've found a few strongholds, mainly in the valley and the riparian areas and then along the river. They're still holding on really pretty strongly in that type of habitat. But yeah, as far as the forested porcupine population, we're not seeing as many there. The regulations don't preclude porcupine hunting as a fur bearer. So if, the hunters or trappers at this time can harvest them. We don't know if, how many or if people do, but.
I know when I first started my career in firefighting and worked seasonally for the BIA forestry program, every BIA forester carried a weapon and they killed every porcupine they saw because they looked at them as a nuisance animal that would girdle the forest trees. And so it was their mission to kill every porcupine they came across. And they did. They killed lots of porcupines. And that was your forested mountain is porcupines that were in our commercial forest. So I know they don't do that today. At least I hope they don't. Maybe they do. I don't know. So I guess a stepwise program would be if they're in danger of falling out of existence, then we should have a prohibition on the taking of porcupine, and then we should look at protecting porcupine habitat always. But it seems like a stepwise program for porcupines. Anyway, I'll leave it to whatever other council discussion is or whatever the wildlife program recommendation is.
Mr. Vice Chair, it's a toss-up for me. I mean, really, the reason for proposing the lifting of the prohibition was more of a social situation. For the fact that the culture committees were so quick to just say, you know what, porcupine, we don't really want to see it. We were kind of on the fence. Don't bring it or bring it. And then it just was like, well, it's kind of that mix. So I would say biologically, we could probably say it would be reasonable to leave the prohibition in place. Because they do occur in other places, but the social part is the challenge. If that's clearish.
Yeah, and just to add on that, because the language in the existing regulation change says that the limitation or the closure is due to big game disturbance, but we could, if we wanted to, because the wildlife or the Ferry Basin Management Unit was that elk management refuge or unit. But, if it's something we want to leave in place, because that is also important for porcupine food throughout that winter, that's something that we could have that regulation reflect as well. Just because, yeah, well, one of the big reasons we were initially proposing to lift it was because it wasn't needed for that elk disturbance, to prevent that elk disturbance anymore, because the populations are doing really well. But if we wanted to, kind of shift the focus to protect the porcupine in that area, we could do that.
So the antlers are still being removed.
After April, correct.
So the food source is disappearing no matter what.
Yeah, one of the things, leaving it in, the closure is between January and April, so that would provide some food throughout the winter. And really, porcupine are mainly using antlers as a source of calcium and some other fluoride and some other nutrients during that really harsh winter months. So, having the April 30th lift of that closure, is probably fine, because they're going to be having other sources of food throughout the spring and the summer. But that's a really important food source, getting them through that winter.
James?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just thinking back to Sharon Matt Treble Elder would always say, throw a gunny sack in the back of your vehicle and you see a porcupine on the road, get the quills. Never did get to do that, but I know every time I went over to see her in Allen, she'd be, get a gunny sack and put it in the back of your car and you see a porcupine. I want some quills. Never was able to get them for her because I never did, one, either have the gunny sack or like, God, where do I even get a gunny sack anymore? So, but anyway, that's the things that I can kind of remember from my childhood, is that they were just everywhere. And I think probably to Tom's, history of it, that's probably a big part of why population has declined in the mountains, so.
We use the pillow. We chase after them with the pillow. And, hit them with the pillow and then you get the quills out. Ever? Boy, you could not go out to Kicking Horse Job Corps without seeing a porcupine in the woods out there, back in the day. It's just, these were roadkill all the time on highways and, up in, well, yeah. Yeah, all the time you see them now is in those lowland, the river bottoms, because that's where they're still persistent. But if you see one up on a mountain road somewhere in the forest, that is a rare, rare event. Yeah. Go ahead, whisper.
One more thing, the place that I've seen them is here on Mud Creek, just outside of town. There's a little patch of woods, I think maybe Duckworth owns that, off of Mud Creek Lane. And you can see the girdling, and then their little scat is just sawdust, little pellets of sawdust. And I haven't seen any, but I've seen and quills and everything out there, so they're around close, but I think they're worth protecting. If you don't want to see this regulation, you could vote against the regulation change or to keep it as it is.
Council's preference? Any preference with the culture committee's recommendation? Go with wildlife's first recommendation. There is no reason to not. You're right. I mean, the elk population is very healthy, and so there really isn't any reason to try to keep people off the forest land or the open range land in the Ferry Basin area anymore. So that's true. So it's whether or not allow people to gather antlers is the issue during the depth of the winter. Everybody's just kind of flipping. No, I'm not gonna say that.
Mr. Vice Chair, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Whisper.
One last thing, and I don't know that I made this super clear, is that once we get the list, then this goes to the 30-day public comment period, and then we'll get the public comments and come back to you on the proposed changes. This is the only one that was for a regulation change. The rest are just dates. So this is the only one that people would be commenting on should it move forward.
Okay, council. I'm gonna stay with the proposal. We'll get public comments. I know, I would be interested in a proposal to prohibit the taking of porcupines in the future. Step one. I don't know why anybody would want to kill one anyway, unless it's totally engrossed in your dog's face. I pulled lots of porcupine quills out of my dogs. It's been a long time though. All right. Consensus to stay with the proposal for public comment? Okay. All right. Looks like that's where we're at.
Next, we have the date updates for the special hunt. This includes Little Money, Camas Bighorn Sheep. We're just changing those from the 2024 dates to 2025. Ferry Basin, Bull Elk. The gray wolf, hunting and adding the word trapping season into the regulations, updating the dates on that. And then Carrie, do you want to talk about this little functional change?
Sorry about that. So this one, the adding of the word end trapping seasons, and then just differentiating. So we were getting a lot of confusion from hunters that are rifle hunting wolves, whether or not they could hunt in the Mission and South zones in September, or if they had to wait until December. So this is just clarifying that the December 1st, the delayed start date is for trapping only, and that's to reduce incidental bycatch of grizzly bears. But rifle hunting season can start in September 1st, just as it does in the northwest zone. So that in the northwest zone, you can hunt and trap starting in September, but there was confusion in that mission in south. So this was just clarifying that.
Also, that we'll have the wolf trapping instruction course that's required and when those dates will be. And then we can choose to talk about the moose season at the same time or talk about that differently because the moose season was one that the Senka Culture Committee members, not all of them, but some of them still had some heartburn about moose regulations. I did change the paper that you probably received before today to the new one because there was an elder that had changed their vote or their opinion on that regulation. So I took the names off to show that, just to say overall, that there are people that don't want to see a season or on moose. And so I'm not sure if you want to vote on all the dates at once, if you want to vote on moose separately, but just to know that Junior and Leonard and Levi did still have some opposition to that. The SQCC were not opposed to the regulation date updates. So I just wanted to leave it out there that we could vote on them all together, or you could vote on moose separately if you're having any opinions on that.
Any discussion on that? Well, we'll just vote on all of them at once. So, council direction to accept all the regulation date changes as proposed. Everybody's good for that, for the advertisement? Okay. Think we're good.
That was it. And now we're going to move on to our next topic.
Yeah, go ahead, Bing.
Oh, Bing's got something. Oh, yes. Anything else for us?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a question about your wolves. You know, I have any idea how many packs there is out here, around here now? Because we was up in Crystal Creek here a couple of weeks ago, and man, there was a hell of a pack of them with the tracks and stuff around up there, you know, and I was just wondering if how many, if you know how many packs that are around, because every time I talk to a game warden, Carol was telling me there's a lot of wolves up here in Valley Creek, Crystal Creek, he said, and there was a lot of them up in the South Fork too, he said, but they just make their circles, he said, and they run anywhere from a couple of weeks, and they can go clear around back up into the Liberty, I mean, not Liberty, but Steely Lake area, and come back around and back on the reservation here and back into Valley Creek in just a couple of weeks. I was just wondering, you know how many packs or how many think there's out there or what, because there is a lot of them.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So we do on the reservation keep track of how many packs we have. We do work with wildlife services as well to help determine if packs have split and changed or divided territories, or whether they're kind of one large territory, and as well as kind of what the pack sizes are in each of those territories. And so we do on the reservation have 8 confirmed packs. There's a possible 9th in the Irvin Flats area, but we can't tell if that's like a continuation of the Hog Heaven pack or if it's a separate pack, if they've maybe split. So we're still trying to differentiate those, but each pack has ranges from 4 to 6 on average, and then some of them up to 8 or 9 individuals, so that Pistol Creek pack is also the same, the territory. The Pistol Creek pack ranges and pops over to Valley Creek. So we did get a wolf collar wolf collared in that pack this year because we were starting to see some depredations in that area as well. So we wanted to be able to closely monitor that pack. They do go over to Valley Creek quite a bit and then up into the Jocko and over to Sealy. So they do have a pretty large range. The other thing with that Valley Creek area is there's a 9-mile pack that's predominantly off the reservation that we work with the state on, and they have some wolves in that 9-mile pack collared. They both kind of share that. They'll pop over to Dixon, and they both, our pack and the 9-mile pack will share that Valley Creek area. So it may seem like there are a lot of wolves in there. We haven't seen an established pack. It's just those other two packs both kind of overlapping that territory there. And a pack be in here one week, they'll move off, and then the Valley or the Pistol Creek pack will come over. So there's some kind of interesting kind of territory. So it's kind of like the boundaries of their territories, they overlap a bit. The boundaries shift based on scent marking, and they have to come and re-scent mark and all of that. So we did see, you know, a few or an uptick in the Pistol Creek pack as far as depredations with livestock this year. So we have been working with Wildlife Services to remove that pack. We've removed one individual earlier this spring. We put a collar out to be able to monitor them closely, and we do see a couple depredations we've had this fall that pack at that collared individual at. So we're working at removing that pack at least down to an individual or two so that we can kind of reduce those and respond to and reduce those conflicts.
Just follow up on that. You're saying you're trying to take them out of the Pistol Creek area. Did anybody shoot them? Because if there is a pack of them there, a guy could.
What was the question? Sorry.
I said, can anybody shoot them? If that pack there is that Pistol Creek area? If you
Yeah.
get rid of them?
Yeah, so that is part of the, I think, mission zone. It might be part of the south. No, I think it's part of the mission zone. So with a wolf permit or a wolf tag, yeah, you can harvest those for sure. But not non-members. No, that would just be for tribal members.
Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, they've had quite a bit of traffic back and forth from the Bison Range this last year and last 2 winters, I think. So
That's a pretty cool story. I wish that bull elk would have done the same thing before I hit it with my car. That same location. Anyway, I guess if we're done with wolf questions, we'll move into executive into the next topic. All right, we'll, come back into session after our lunch break. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We got an email at lunch about the toy drive that's, housing is doing. Just through the lunch hour, we got commitments from SNK Tech and Gaming that they will cover right now, I believe 75% of the 6,000 and change. And what Rhonda was asking, Rhonda Quickasu from Housing was initially asking about was us to cover the entire amount. So I'm hoping the other corporations may come in. I've sent it to EKI is the one that's remaining that hasn't responded yet. So I'm hoping they'll cover the rest. If not, I would propose the council covers the remaining balance out of our fund that Greg's gonna find the money for. Thank you.
Thanks for that update, Martin. Go ahead, Greg.
I'll make sure to find that funding and get that completed for you. Will you send me an email, please, sir, on that so that I can have it? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Thank you, members of council. So today I've got a journal entry that I'd like to start off the presentation with. As you may recall, we're beyond the closeout period for fiscal year 2024. As we find certain journal entries that need to be made, we're in an era or a time period where we need to bring those journal entries to council for approval, just so that you're aware. So this journal entry covers 4 different paid individuals who received their compensation. It was an off-cycle run that was effective on September 27th. And these are the journal entries that attribute the compensation to the appropriate programs. And this journal entry needs to be approved by council so that it can be added to our fiscal 2024 year-end closeout. I'm open to any questions or feedback.
Any questions from council? It's a procedure that's required. I would entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Martin, second by Carol. Yeah, go ahead.
So explain that to us in simpler terms.
During the week of September 27th, when this particular payroll process was run, these 4 individuals received their paycheck. We distribute that money to them as a normal part of their compensation, but the expense associated with that compensation needs to be charged to the different programs that those particular employees work for. So the journal entry process debits the program and credits our account so that we can move the money out of where the program houses and sits with those funds into our payroll account so that we can make the journal entries to charge that person's compensation to the appropriate program. So this journal entry charges the expense to the program where those men and women work. Yes, sir.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Show of hands. Unanimous. Get those charges to the right account.
So do you see a tribal agenda request form, page 30? Does that appear on all of your screens? All right. So there's a handful of things in this agenda request. The first one is going to cover the finalization of the amendment to the Grey Wolf Peak Grey Wolf Peak loan. Grey Wolf Peak loan, remember, is scheduled on December 16th to begin to float to prime plus a spread. Here on your screen is the second amendment to the loan agreement, which particularly addresses the loan terms, particularly as it relates to the interest rate. That the interest rate shall be fixed at 6% for the next 8 years, and then it will begin to float over 5-year periods at a rate no greater than 6 and a rate no lower than 3. This has been written and reviewed. It's been sent to Brian Upton and Dan Decker's team for final review. It's been sent over to Mr. Miller for final review, and the terms of the interest rate appear to be correct in all of our eyes, and the language meets legal's requirements. So I'm here to present this for final action and for council to assent for this to be sent for signatures.
Any questions? Glenn?
I thought we agreed to 5. I want to check the minutes.
Not sure. I think we talked about 6, but yeah. I don't know. Go ahead, Greg.
There were two loans as part of the discussion in this conversation. This one is the existing loan where they're currently at 6, and I believe that I will go find out and check, but I will go look in the minutes, but I believe this one was to stay at 6 and then to float, and that the new terms have a far more favorable on the Polson West project. So that one does have a different number to it.
Yeah, go ahead, Martin.
I know this is kind of getting in the weeds. Are there any penalties for them to pay it off early?
The note specifically reads that this amendment that is being considered today specifically reads that there are no changes to the existing note, and the existing note has no penalty for early principal payment or for retiring the loan outright in itself. So they have the luxury of making additional principal payments or retiring the debt early if they see fit.
Any other questions? I can't remember. Did we have a motion? Motion by Jen. Second by Bing. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carol? Unanimous?
The next portion of the presentation this afternoon is the introduction of the gift card policy. We rolled this out in a conversationally in a couple of engagements beforehand, and this is the formalization of the gift card policy. Would like to have Bill walk you through it and answer any questions that you have. The overarching theme is having good custody of the cards that we have in our hands and making sure that we have good logs to account for the distribution of those gift cards. That's boiling it down to the essence, but Bill can walk you through the policy and the language for your consideration and discussion.
Good afternoon, everyone. The gift card policy, we wrote it because we determined and we understand that gift cards are just a plastic representation of cash. And we wanted to make sure that the control and monitoring of those gift cards was strong enough to really provide the council and membership with a level of assurance that they need relative to the movement and the custody of these gift cards. So I'd like to point out, now the policy, it just says gift cards be used when practical and necessary to carry out program activities and not a payment to vendors for services. And gift cards purchased using grant or contract funding must comply with the limitations of the grant or the contract. And that's pretty straightforward. When we have a policy and a procedure in the same document, the policy is kind of like a mini mission statement. What are we trying to do? And then the procedures are the step-by-step instructions on how we accomplish that. So that's important to understand. Here we're talking about gift card storage. It has to be secure. You can't, no more keeping gift cards in the desk drawer or whatever. We want absolute security on the gift cards that are on hand. And then the gift card distribution and tracking. First of all, getting back to the gift cards, when Property and Supply issues those gift cards to the program, then Property and Supply has to note on their custody log that they distributed to the program. And then the program has a custody log, and they have to sign off on Property and Supplies distribution, and then bring the custody of those cards to the program. And the dual signatures are required for everything. And then when they go one step further, when they go to maybe an event, and they want to take 100 gift cards to hand out during the event, but they only hand out 50, then 50 of them have to come back to custody, and 2 people have to sign off on the fact that we have that many left and that we turned it into the program, and somebody in the program has to accept those cards and accept responsibility for maintaining the custody and the security of those cards.
Are there any questions or comments about this?
So based on what you explained to us, was that being done in the past? Was there any questionable distribution?
I can't speak to that, but there've been indications that maybe it's not as tight as it should have been. Greg might be able to speak to that better. I don't know, but there may have been some indication that things were a little loose, but we just feel that it's time to have a gift card policy that's going to tighten things up. And in addition to that, we get down to the okay.
There was no policy in place, so there was no framework for which we were to follow to enforce, which is why we're presenting a policy. This will give the controller's office and each program the ability to track and be responsible for this. It was a little astonishing that there wasn't a policy, but as we're using gift cards more and more in the programs and at different events, it was incumbent upon us to write a policy and to address any questions or rumors of impropriety in the field.
One question on the the recipient of the card. Is there where to, do you gather enough information to verify that that person actually got the card, that you could contact them to make sure that they got it?
We see a couple of different events. We see events where the program goes out and does an event and actually hands the cards to the members and does hand the cards to the eligible recipient. We want to collect a signature at that step so that we can verify that the person running the program hands it or gives it to the person who's intended for it to go. I cannot think of opportunities where a program might put one into a backpack or a gift card as a donation or a gift without the department head and the program manager signing off that it was placed there so that there's accountability for when that card is moved out into the field. We're trying to slow down the speed of improper distribution if it's out there.
I was just wondering how I would verify that the individual actually got that card, because if I'm just trying to backtrack to like tribal credit back in the day. So if a program gets 100 gift cards and we're going to have a door prize for people attending this event and they gather their name and a signature, but is there a way to get contact information so that there could be, in case you wanted to, make sure that the card actually went to that person?
I can add contact information to the signature log, but I'm imagining being at the door and having the door prize and have you sign for a $100 gift card, have you put your signature and your telephone number. That might be an additional step that we can put on what we're calling an approved distribution log, so that we're capturing the card number, the dollar amount, the name of the employee giving it away, and the name of the recipient. And I think we can probably add a phone number to that. That might be
just to verify it's a real person, you know?
Yes, sir.
They actually got it beyond just a signature, because that was the thing. I think if I recall before, people were fronting and making up. People were consuming and they weren't. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I think that's a really good idea, because what's to prevent someone from writing someone else's name down? And then if you have their number, they could say, Jennifer, did you get a $50 gift card at the baby fair? And I would be like, I never went to a baby fair. My kids are grown. So I think that's a really great idea, just to create that another level of accountability.
We'll add that. Thank you for your feedback.
Okay, on page 34.
Excuse me, Bill. Go ahead, Bing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, reading this, we have to sign a card distribution log before we get these cards.
That's the intent. I'm imagining a scenario where there's a program with a table and we have a bunch of people coming to an event, coming to receive that gift card. Maybe it's an education event, that the recipient is handed the gift card and signs that log, so that if 100 gift cards are taken to that event and 75 are given out, we have 75 signatures and we have 25 cards that get returned to the custody log. It should be a verifiable process, and that's done at the distribution site.
I would call it, personnel up there and see where mine was, because, and they said, well, we're still waiting on, property and supply to bring it, you know, and I thought, well, gee, well, it's been almost over 3 weeks now, so I don't know to
think,
bring it, but.
yeah, I think being yours is a gift certificate is
Yeah,
what,
mine's gifts.
right? Yeah, not a card.
This is a perfect, pardon me for interrupting. This is a perfect example of when Property and Supply receives the order to buy the gift cards for personnel for the awards for tribal employees, that they have a log that says we've ordered them, here's the PO number, and here's the quantity of gift cards we received. I also want personnel to come and be able to sign out that they received them, so that the 10 gift cards transfer from Property and Supply directly to the custody log at personnel. And so when your gift card is ready to be handed out, Renee and somebody or some dual custody, or you would sign their log that says, here's your gift card, sir, and it can be handed to you and you'd sign for receipt. It's designed to help make a touch all the way along the way, so that we don't have seepage or shrinkage at any of those touch points. And remember, a gift card is like cash, so we want to be able to track those along the way.
Gift certificate is a little different. It's made out to an individual. So it has more trackability than,
Love it.
than a card.
Are there any questions about the adoption of this policy as it stands, or as we continue to review?
I'd like to point out on page 34 that probably the most important aspect of this policy are the unused gift cards at the end of the program, at the end of the grant year, at the end of the fiscal year, and those have to be accounted for. And if they're not going to be used in the same program, then we have to decide how we're going to account for them and how we're going to distribute them. Maybe they need to be returned to the grantor, because the grantor paid for it. But that's a decision that comes at the end of the program year or fiscal year. Then enforcement. My office will have unannounced visits to programs that deal in gift cards, and we'll have them require that they show us their reconciliation, and that we can go to the secure location and account for every unused gift card that they haven't distributed yet. So they should be able to do that. And if they can't, then we have to, there has to be some penalty or some accountability for that. So my office will be conducting ongoing throughout the year inspections of these programs that have gift cards, so we can make sure that the policy is being followed and the gift cards aren't just disappearing.
Yeah, go ahead, Len.
Greg or Bill, do you have any suggested penalties? Just something to think about. I mean, I don't.
My expectation for presentation to council would be that if we learn of that and find it, that we bring it in for a discussion to look at what's going on. I would be uncomfortable at this moment talking about those.
One other thing, I need to apologize, and VA apologizes too, because my hearing aids quit working about a month ago. I'm driving Greg nuts saying, huh? And I just want you to know that if I look at you, I see you talking, and if I don't respond, that's the reason. And we can bill VA for that time. Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on this policy?
I guess one question I have is in comparing gift certificates to gift cards, and because I used to gather lots of gift certificates for fundraisers and et cetera, et cetera. And they usually have an expiration on them. And so there is no gift card that has an expiration on it. Is that correct? Or is there?
Most of the gift cards that we're working with are usually Visa or MasterCard. They may be fuel cards, they may be Walmart cards, and those don't appear on their face to have an expiration. Most of the times they're not in the field long enough to reach that expiration. They're being used almost immediately. So they would be different than a gift certificate that typically says must be used on or before or has an expiration like that.
Go ahead, Martin.
So if we say want to get gas vouchers from Quicksilver, they do gift certificates. Is this gonna apply to that as well?
Do those come as self-generated documents? Okay, so my expectation would be that if we're creating a proprietary document that's exchanged for fuel that really represents cash, then we ought to have some accountability built into that. At this moment in time, we're looking specifically at gift cards that we see as in the drawer, handed out without consequence, cash. If there are other steps that you want to advise us to take to add to that, we'd be happy to formulate a gift certificate policy for proprietarily created certificates of that nature.
Yeah, so the vaccination stuff we gave out, handwritten $15 gift card or gift certificate to Quicksilver. And I don't know how many Joe had, but there was a handful of them. And Joe still has some in his pocket. No, I'm just joking.
I think reflecting on that for just a minute, I don't think that we charged Quicksilver, or we didn't charge in. Did we charge someone $15? Did we charge a program $15 for each of those certificates?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we want to be accountable for those so that they're not distributed without.
Yeah, I don't think those actually, if I recall Joe and Patty correctly, they weren't made out to someone's name. They were just a blank certificate. So it's similar to a gift card. And that certificate was real similar. I think Martin's point's well taken. Because Quicksilver doesn't have a gift card thing yet. We'll have a Flathead Millionaire ticket there, though. By golly. Half a millionaire. Well, I really appreciate what you've done here so far. This is really good. I mean, this is a really, yeah, it's an improvement over nothing. So.
We've spent quite a bit of time in last month's training session for the financial leaders. Quite a bit of time talking about this upcoming gift card policy if it's approved, and the fact that it'll be launched on January 1. And we're having another training session which will touch on this policy if it's approved, and it's not going to be a strange item for discussion on the financial leaders. We've been talking about it for a couple months, so.
All right. Any other questions? We're on the right path here. Looking good.
Is there council action for us to implement this policy?
I would say absent no policy, this is, yes, I would recommend council implement this immediately with ongoing revisions and amendments. Motion by Len, second by Jennifer. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all is in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Bill.
I'd like to call your attention to page 35. And this is a policy that we brought before you, I think it was in October. And there was some concern as to what policies would fit into which category and who be responsible for that. So we've come back with, on page 35 is the old policy that we provided and proposed. And then you asked us to come back with some samples of what would fit in these categories. So in doing so, we redesigned that policy matrix, and you can see that on page 36. It's a little bit clearer, and the next page, 37, is gonna lay out some samples of what policies would fit into which category. So page 37, we have on the left Department of Financial Management categories, and then the third column is the tribal council categories. So if I could just go through the Department of Financial Management categories quickly. The Governmental Accounting Standards Board, GASB, those are requirements that are placed on us. We don't have any latitude. It's not optional. It's a requirement, and we feel that probably rises to the level, maybe Director of Financial Management being able to sign off on that policy and not bring it to you folks and take up your time for something that we really have no choice. And then the next category is governmental accounting, generally accepted accounting principles. That's governmental GAAP. And there again, it's governmental GAAP specifies how you recognize revenue, when you recognize revenue, all these different things. And it's not optional. It's not, if you want to do it kind of thing. So we're required to make those policies. Then the next category down is financial management policies and procedures and best practices in audit compliance. For example, capital assets, useful lives. That's a policy that we have in place, and it's looked at about every 2 years, I think. But and those useful lives come from various sources, maybe GASB, Governmental Accounting Standards Board, or another, the financial managers organization around the nation, other tribes. What do they find that this asset, what do they use for a useful life? And it's just a way to determine how we depreciate those assets. And so we feel that probably not something that we need to waste your time on, but that's up to, it's up to you. Then journal entry procedures, we've instituted a number of new journal entry procedures, but the journal entries have to be made at certain times to make a correction or to properly post a transaction. So we know that, and that's the mini mission statement. So we know the JEs have to be made, but we've modified the procedures quite a bit. So in each instance, they have to follow certain procedures, and we feel that it's mostly a procedural thing. We're not asking for any new policy.
Let's pause there for just a quick second. So as Bill continues to outline the things that we're identifying as things that should rest inside of the finance department under the financial management group, I think it's important to highlight the things that will remain at council level for approval. And that's in the third column. And I think those things are implicit that must continue to come to council. Things that impact people and membership, things that impact personnel, things that impact the investment policy statement or bank signatures. So those continue to remain in the purview of council for approval. Some of the other things we've described here on the other side are internal controls and our ability to meet some of the financial restrictions and obligations that we have in that department. Mr. Vice Chairman, you asked us to provide a list of some of the examples, and I'm hoping that these address some of your concerns in that arena.
I know that your concerns were, what are we gonna put under the purview of the Department of Financial Management? And you wanted some examples, and so I'm not gonna read through all of them, but we feel that anything that's listed here is an example of what we would keep under Department of Financial Management, like Greg said. Catalog of federal regulations, requirements, CFR. If it's mandated by CFR, we have to do it. For example, that $10,000 fixed asset, capital asset threshold that we brought to you last month or in October, that was mandated. We had no choice but to move it up to $10,000 from $5,000. And so that's where we would say, you know, probably we don't have to bring it before council, because it's just us doing what our job is to make sure that we're in compliance financially, in financial reports, make sure that there's comparability, and security, consistency in all our financial reporting. So our financials can be compared to other financials that are uploaded to the federal clearinghouse. So everybody's playing on the same field. Now, if you're a component unit, you're not worried about GASB, you're worried about FASB. So we don't really deal too much in FASB, Financial Accounting Standards Board. Those are for corporations. So our auditors, just as a matter of information, our auditors have to convert those audit reports from those component units to GASB to have them fit into our reporting structure.
Are there any questions on this information so far?
Not seeing any right now. Any questions? No? Okay.
Internal controls, it's pretty straightforward. TBC process, that's a process. It's not really a policy. And we say that kind of follows under the purview of Department of Financial Management, along with NSF checks procedures, travel and credit cards, establishing a procedure for travel and policies to control disbursement safeguarding of CSKT credit cards. And there again, the policy in those documents is pretty straightforward. We have to account for all the expenses in our travel. That travel is on behalf of CSKT. You have to account for those expenses and turn them in and document them and get them through the process. That's the mini mission statement. And then we have the procedures that 3 or 4 pages long to give you step-by-step instructions on how to accomplish that. Now, with the tribal council categories, we have people in membership. Anything that has anything to do with membership, say approval of tribal membership through blood quantum or whatever, and those things that specifically address people and the membership should be left under the purview of the tribal council. They should be brought here. Personnel, we got ordinance 69, a number of different permutations there. PTO payout and PTO management. We had that before you, I think 2019, something like that. I can't recall. And that's just personnel dealing with the employees. Anything that's dealing with employees at large, we think it should come to you folks. Investment policy. I know that the council has stipulated certain investments that they would like to be involved in or not involved in. So that investment policy, we feel, has to come before council. And then a sale and purchase of any real property, the opioid settlement fund, and the dedicated trust fund. Anything that has to do with those categories should come before council. You know, we're not going to retain that in Department of Financial Management. That rises to the level of council scrutiny. And then banking and investment signature authority for approval of signatures on checking accounts, investment accounts, movement of money. That should be here in front of you to approve and not kept at Department of Financial Management.
Have any feedback for us on this list of examples, or are they ringing true with what your expectations would be for things that stay with council and things that are more accounting driven, staying in finance?
Any questions, comments? Okay.
So our thought process is that with your approval, we can start doing these things. One of the examples is one from today, the gift card policy. Is the gift card policy that you want us to bring into council for a discussion regarding that, or is that something that stays inside the Department of Financial Management? That's an example of, is this a policy that affects membership and people? Is it affect staff, or is it a financial management process? That would be a perfect example of something that would be up for consideration about where does it fall. And I'm open to your feedback and thoughts on those items.
Go ahead, Carol.
I prefer you have the authority to do this, but if something goes wrong in a department financially, I want to know. And I keep hearing this thing about property and supply. I don't know if we're an executive. Anyway, that's kind of where I'm at.
Probably. We'll go into executive. Want to elaborate on that one? We'll come out.
So the conversation is reviewing the page above this, which is an example of what types of items would remain under the scope of the Director of Financial Management and what items would continue to remain the purview of council itself. And then the list of examples, while not exhaustive, should provide a clear and concise nature of the things that the Department of Financial Management clearly understands, that things that impact people and membership and personnel are not merely within the scope of figuring out how to account for receivables or anything like that. We look at that very clearly and concisely.
Any additional questions? You want to think about it more? Do you want all council to be here? Or treasurer? No. Is he? Where is he? Oh, there he is. He is. Hey, James.
Yep.
I'm not going to talk about my horoscope anymore. Any more questions, or is council okay with the policy procedure authority as described? The changes, I know some of it is just, it's so common sense housekeeping things. That's obvious, but just added clarity to it. I appreciate that. Is that a motion? We need a motion? Go ahead, Craig.
one of the things that Bill mentioned in our prior meeting is that we will continue to keep a list of the things that are changed or updated. So this isn't a blind, this is still going to create a list of all of the things that changes. So for example, as we adopted the capital asset change from 5,000 to 10,000, we continue to keep a log organizationally of any updates and change because we're audited on those things. We're audited on different P&P changes that must be. So we continue to be audited externally on those types of changes. So this is not obscuring anything from anyone.
Was there any need of legal review for this? Should be. Yeah, because you're just following the audit requirements of federal law. Motion? Motion by Martin to approve the policy procedure approval authority as drafted. Seconded by Carol. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Carol made the motion and Martin seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? You see James? Where you at? James is okay with it?
Yep.
Okay, unanimous.
Thank you all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Get those hearing aids, by golly. Good afternoon. How did the gathering go this morning? Good?
It was very nice. Thank you for the opportunity to pull the staff together in one group. It went very well, I think, for the first time. We appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, it's been a while. Pre-COVID, I think, is before we got together. I did, before we start, I did want to share, I guess, what I thought was the best part of the meeting. It was my jokes. Yeah, what's it called when a cow has a runny nose? Mucus. What do you call a pony with a cough? A little horse. A little horse. Anyway. Thank you so much for the chance. I think the employees appreciate it. We've grown significantly in the last several years, and it was just a good chance for people to meet other people in the department, meet out who their team members were. We threw in a little training, kind of improved communications. So it went very well. Thank you. Oh. Dr. Fox knows probably more about it.
There was a few of them, but the one that I like the most is the square breathing.
It's a 4-second in, hold, 4-second out, hold. So it's one of the grounding techniques, but it's yeah. But she read a few breathing suggestions.
Yeah. Mr. Vice Chairman, we had a couple council actions, we would like to maybe have you take under consideration before we kind of started the health committee discussion. I think the first one here on the screen is, we are requesting authority to purchase a bone density scanner through the diabetes program. The funding source will be the diabetes funding. It is, I don't know how to best explain it, but it's part of the care program that they use with the diabetic population. It's one of the impacts of diabetes is impacts your bone density, bone structure. So it's part of the care we provide them, and measuring impacts over a period of time. We want to buy this piece of equipment and utilize it in the diabetes program. That resolution is on page. Try and get there. Forty-six. There we go. Oh,
It's the
which
next
page?
one.
49, 39. The wrong way.
Sure. This followed the procurement policy and everything?
I believe so. It's a grant funded funding source, so I don't, and I guess the reason it's in front of you outside of the procurement is it's a non-competitive procurement. And that's what the letter states. Yeah. The procurement will follow a non-competitive bid process. We will purchase a scanner from our established vendor, McKesson. I don't know that I need to read those, but Jesse, Dr. Cahoon provided the background on the request. Yep. So the request is a non-competitive procurement for a bone density scanner through McKesson, our existing GSA vendor.
Pardon, Carol?
Curious, things like that are actually needed, why did they need to come? I know there's a dollar amount, but it seems like there's some things that so obvious that it shouldn't require council approval because it really takes a lot of time.
I think we're here because it's a non-competitive. We didn't go out and receive
Well, that
bids.
too.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
you're out there trying to buy the most expensive item because I know you.
I called myself cheap this morning. So it's through McKesson. It's a GSA contract. So we use that kind of competitive pricing through McKesson. But per policy, it's a non-competitive, so we need your approval. I think it ties into the conversation you had this morning with Greg and Bill about that procurement policy. You know, what kind of fits and what doesn't, Carol? What maybe we can move forward with on some of those purchases and what should come into you for those approvals. I think it's an opportune time to have that discussion about procurement.
Yeah, if you can buy it through GSA, you're not gonna get any better deal, absolutely. It's like trying to buy an outboard motor. Remember back when we were building our fisheries fleet, to buy a 100-horse outboard motor, it was gonna be, $8,000 back then, and through GSA it was $2,000. So it's a significant discount, but again, you're just going to one GSA vendor, and we qualified because of our travel government status to purchase from GSA. So.
Yeah.
Now I would entertain a motion to approve the sole source. Motion by Danielle or Jimmy. Motion by Jimmy, second by Danielle. Any further discussion? All's in favor?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and Council. The second request is for a resolution for the purchase of the mobile behavioral health unit. I believe Dr. Fox had an opportunity to introduce that to you earlier this week. So we're back requesting approval to purchase that particular unit. That is that other resolution I was, 46.
Yes, Dr. Fox did bring this up and talked about the grant and working with Logan Healthcare. And so council's had background on this particular mobile unit to bring care to the, I think it was schools, Charlo Mission, but all schools.
Yeah, so we'll partner with Logan Health for the Charlo and St. Ignatius schools, and then we're working through the MOUs with other schools to provide service to them as well. And then we'll also use it for mobile outreach when it's not being utilized at the schools.
Motion by, or go ahead, Danielle.
Motion, let's get
Motion
it.
by Danielle to approve the resolution to purchase the mobile care unit for behavioral health services. Second by Jimmy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Thank you, Tribal Council. Now we can kind of maybe jump to the Health Committee agenda, if you're ready to do that.
We are, go ahead. No,
I don't think any of that discussions, I'll find the page with the agenda,
47.
47. All right. Thank you. So the first thing on the agenda is kind of the report card that I provide you at each meeting. I did want to point out, I'm getting it smaller and smaller, means I'm putting more information on it. I did want to point out a couple things. I believe, Mr. Vice Chair, you asked about vaccination kind of data and history. So I've included a section to talk about our vaccination activities. That would be on the left side of the sheet. Vaccinations talks about which vaccinations were provided, whether they were provided in a pharmacy or the clinics or public health, and give you some total numbers. So there's some vaccination data we've included in the report now. Going forward, we can kind of track our progress around that particular metric. So this, the colored columns are previous fiscal years. So you can see 23, FY 22, FY 23, FY 24, and then the furthest column on the right is kind of year to date 25. So that's kind of how I've structured it. The other maybe component I wanted to point out, I'm trying to identify, maybe get in front of you and identify some management metrics that you can kind of track how well I'm managing the resources provided. So on the right-hand side, there's a some of our account numbers that are our most significant sources of funding. So if this is information you want, I'll continue to provide this. It just talks about how we're using the resources you provide to provide services to the program. So compact budget is 4130. That's one of our significant budgets and a third-party budget also that provide, I don't know, 60 or 70% of our resources. So how well we're using those resources to provide care may be a metric you might want to track. So I put that there. We can continue to track that if that kind of gives you some information to judge how well we're doing as far as using resources. And then I guess the other metric that I track and have been trying to figure out how to better use is the tribal health paid care budget, that money we pay for care outside of our services. That's the PRC, we call it THPC in tribal health. I wanted to track over time how well we're using that money. I think I've reported over time that we are not using that resource effectively. I think historically we've spent probably between 40 and 48% of that budget annually. It's a $14 million budget. Now, we've got to figure out how to better use that resource to pay for care not available under the health department, but is specialized care that we can pay for outside. So I don't know if it's appropriate management metric or not, but I want to get some of those things in front of you so that can be part of the metric that we have conversations about going forward. I know 45% is not utilizing that resource well. So if I track that over time, I think we can begin to show improvements in that particular resource. So I don't want to take too much of your time. I know we're trying to get back on schedule. So that's the report card. I've added some metrics to it. If they give you information that you want to see that helps you make decisions or measure our progress, I'll continue to use them. If there are other things that make sense that you want to know going forward or on a regular basis, I'll try to figure out how I pull that data and include it in our conversations.
Go ahead, Martin.
I was just curious, someone said to me that Folsom Dental sees like twice as many patients as St. Ignatius. Is that true? And if so, is there a way to maybe send more to Mission than to alleviate some of the pressure off of Folsom?
I would expect the Polson number to be higher. I have more dentists and staff in Polson. I have Sean Griffith and Taylor Diggs in Mission. So I have 2 dentists down there. I have more than 2 in Polson. So yeah, I'd expect the numbers to be higher. We are currently, I'm glad you brought that. We are currently working on identifying another dentist that we can bring to Mission and start addressing some of that backlog of appointments that we've got built up. So we can provide more appointments to get people in again. So one of the metrics I talk about on the report card is appointment lead times. So we want to manage that. So bringing another dentist on with their support will help us kind of manage that number.
I'll just keep going down this road. I know that we're serving other populations and other people, I guess. Wondering if there's a way that we can make CSKT tribal members a priority over members from other tribes? Just for dental.
We can explore that. I don't know how to navigate that. IHS provides that money to provide the eligible population. The eligible population is those individuals who have identified a tribal member of a tribal community. It doesn't have to be a member. It just has to, it can be descendants. So we use those resources to provide services to that population. I don't know how to start, navigating that particular. I think um, uh, we are aware that there are members from other reservation communities that come here and present as residing here to get into our dental program. If it's one of the best dental programs for tribes, so other reservation members recognize that, so they are figuring out ways to become eligible in this particular community and access our dental program. That's a real question, Martin. We've got to figure out how to navigate that so members, community members who live here have that priority access. It's a real issue. Sometimes we find it as part of the registration process. That's why we ask people to go through registration. We see if we go into the system and we check RPMS, but and then in RPMS they have an address over the hill, then we can kind of dig deeper around it. But it is an issue. We've got to figure out how to navigate that yet. So trying to make the report card useful to you so you can measure progress or provide directions. I will continue to include that data that I just recently added. If there's other things that are on your mind that you want to understand how we're doing, I can try to figure out how to add those metrics to the report card.
Appreciate it, Joe. Thank you.
I'll see you again then. Okay, there we go. I think, Mr. Vice Chairman, you had the conversation about the Flathead Lake Inn property earlier this week, so I won't continue on that conversation. I did want to give Dr. Fox some time to talk about intensive outpatient care and maybe a brief discussion about what the ASAM levels are. Patricia is involved with the Red Shield 8 Nations, and that's at ASAM level 3 and above. Intensive outpatient is 2 and above, if I understand correctly, and that's kind of what our plan for that Logan Health building is, or the Flathead Lake Inn property. But anyway, she can better explain the ASAM levels and those levels of care around intensive outpatient and intensive inpatient.
Yeah, and we touched on this briefly a couple of days ago as well, so I'll just do a brief overview, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Briefly, ASAM is just the American Society of Addictive Medicine, and they are kind of the gold standard for setting levels of care and what those look like. The ASAM is built up of initially dimensions, and so there's criteria dimensions, which there's 6 of those. Those are what compose the determination of level of need or level of care. And then there's a continuum of care that contains 4 levels. So for level 1, that's the typical outpatient model. That is what we're currently providing at Tribal Behavioral Health for addictions and mental health care. So that level 1 is typically less than 8 hours of care per week. So it can go up to 8 hours, and that includes groups, skills type work, individual psychotherapy, anything like that counts under that outpatient level of care. There's also the component of medically managed care. So like our MAP programming that we do have under medical as well. There's different levels of that, and that also is consistent with the hours of care provided. So we have levels 1 and 2, up to level 2 for our MAP programming as well. What we're looking to develop is that level 2, which is the intensive outpatient. And so that would be level 2.1. There is a level 2.5, which is a higher intensity. But what we're going to target first is level 2.1, and that's 9 to 20 hours of care per week. And so that'll primarily be comprised of the co-occurring mental health and chemical dependency psychoeducation groups, one-on-one therapy, and then, as we mentioned before, implementing other skills-based groups like cooking classes, cultural activities and cultural education. And so all of that will go into that level 2 of programming. And then level 3 is when you get into that residential care. And so there's also the medically managed residential care, and then the high intensity medically managed inpatient care. And so that's what we usually think of as like detox, when you go in and you're 24-hour monitored for detox from substances. And so that's the level 4, and then level 3 are those inpatient residential, typically a minimum of 28 days. The program that we're using fairly frequently right now is Royal Life over in Washington, and their programming is a 12-week program that does include a detox level, and then level 3, where they actually step down into partial hospitalization, where they have intensive programming during the day, and they don't live in the inpatient residence, but they do provide housing apartments that they live at. And so it's a partially supported, they don't consider it a halfway house, but I would consider it between inpatient and outpatient. And then when they step down from that, they have an option to participate in the graduate program, where they do move into the community, start seeking employment, that kind of thing. Most people at that phase return home, and that's where we pick up their care. And that's where we're wanting to have this level 2, so we can have that higher intensity of care as soon as they're returning home from treatment. So any questions about that? Yes.
Go ahead, Martin.
So if someone, I guess, what's the turnaround time? Say someone comes in the office, wants to go to treatment, how quick are we getting them there? And we don't currently have any place for them to detox, so how does, are they just on their own? I mean, that's one of, I've seen a lot of people really want to go, and then it's a week later, and then, or I'm sure you've seen it too, but that's one of the things that I'd like to tighten up, I guess.
Yeah. So for the detox piece, unofficially, the hospitals in the area have indicated if we have this level 2 of care, they would be willing to do more detox within the hospitals and have agreement with our organization. If we have our tribal members, tribal healthcare recipients going through the hospital, they would be more willing to keep them to engage in detox. What they were seeing happen and they don't want to do is have people go through the detox process, release to the community, and immediately relapse because they're not getting support. And so that is something that will be part of this workflow plan, is working with the hospitals if they would officially put that on paper that they would do that. For the turnaround time, to some degree, it does depend on circumstance. I know, especially with the defender's office, we have Shanley Swanson is there 2 days a week under tribal health. And then we also have one of our other providers who is working under her supervision to become a co-occurring provider. We've gotten the turnaround time for those assessments to be fairly quick. We've had people go the same week when they've been referred. And so they've got a assessment and referral process down. And we work with that team, the reentry team, to get people assessed, turned around, and picked up from Royal Life within the same week. We are shoring up some of that process for our outpatient addictions team based out of St. Ignatius. I would like to see that process move more quickly. And with our level 2 having LACs and LCSWs on site, I would like to provide that same day. I think I mentioned last time, like having maybe 2 days a week where people can walk in and get same day ASAM criteria assessed. And if they're inpatient, we can immediately turn that around. If they're not meeting the dimensions and criteria for inpatient, we can finish that more thorough assessment and get them placed at level 1 or 2 appropriately.
Danielle?
Thank you, Mr. Gojo, on your report card type sheet, it says APPT lead time, and then it has days. And it's got for 24 BH, I would assume is behavioral health, and CD would be chemical dependency. 14 days for behavioral health and 8 days for chemical dependency. Is that how many days it's taking them from the time they call in to get their appointment? Is that what that means? The amount of time when they call in and when they're put on the appointment calendar, yes. Yep. So they're on their appointment, they'll be seen within that time frame then, within that 14 days. They'll be scheduled, yes. They'll have an appointment within that 14 days. If they're scheduled, though, they're scheduled within that time frame, or can they be scheduled 30 days out? I think this is an average, and it changes. It's if you watch it closely, it's like the stock market. It could change every day depending where schedules are. This is an average over time, so yeah, I don't know if that explains it. Yes, But I know we need to, and we are putting a lot of money and attention on behavioral health and chemical dependency. And doing that, I know the data is there because we see it every day in our communities, the crisis we have with both of those issues. But I think in your report card next time, or if you could please, some more sure data on, you know, how many people are we seeing for behavioral health and chemical dependency? I don't think that's a violation of HIPAA. It's just a statistical number, and how many therapists we actually have on staff. Then that helps us see the ratio, because if it's still taking us 2 weeks for behavioral health and over a week for chemical dependency, is it an operations issue? We've got enough staff to do it and we're operating incorrectly, or we don't have enough staff and we need to keep creating more space, because we've got to figure out why it's taking us these couple weeks to see people. yeah, we'll try to add that additional information to it, but yeah. Generally, it's 14 days from the time a patient calls and tries to get on a provider's calendar when we can get that appointment scheduled. I think all those factors add into the number, and again, it changes daily. If you track it daily, this is an average, but the goal is to shrink that time as best we can with the resources we have. Space, staffing, holidays. At the end of the year, you probably hear this from everybody, at the end of the year, as people have to use their PTO balances, it's harder to get schedules firmed up. There's a lot of employees who are in use it or lose it, so December's a challenging month for us. And we've talked about some of these PTO challenges. We're seeing it throughout the tribal departments, and that's, you know, I'm hoping our managers are really taking a good look at that and creating vacation schedulers at the beginning of the year, so we're not running into this. That's the manager, a supervisorial job to manage that time, so our offices aren't empty at the end of the year, so we can take care of our people. So I guess I'll challenge you to work with your teams on how to manage these vacation schedules, because ADP shows us how many hours each one of our associates has for leave. So we should be able to catch this really early as we're in there approving payroll. I'll have to show you. I don't know.
One thing I did want to touch on is a service that we offer through behavioral health is the same day access. And I'm not sure if that's being captured in the appointment time for when they're being scheduled out. But that's a warm handoff, usually from medical, and one of our therapists go in and respond immediately, do a brief assessment. It's usually a 20 to 30-minute appointment, and they assess for risk, assess for what's going on currently, and then provide recommendations from there. They also provide an intervention, so a breathing exercise, information about medication, whatever is most appropriate. So a lot of times those are happening the same day if medical is identifying a mental health need and referring them to our team. So I'm not sure if those visits are being captured in that timeline, but those happen same day or next business day. If the person is not able to stay longer for that appointment, we do reach out, but we have a team that's dedicated to doing that. And then separately, we do maintain our emergency on call. If there is an emergency where we think someone's at a higher level of risk for harm to self or others, we're able to call them in and they do a risk evaluation as a mental health professional and provide recommendations from there as well. So some of those visits may not necessarily be captured in the turnaround time of visits because those are happening immediately and they are billed, but I know sometimes our warm handoffs kind of get hidden by the medical billing since it's part of the medical appointment. But I can work with Joe and kind of designate where some of those numbers may be pulled so we can share some of that out as well.
I did want to maybe circle back to that transition to inpatient. I think we touched on it briefly, but those assessments are an important part of the process. Often, I'll say, I get calls from a family member or someone else saying this person really has to go to treatment right now. But there is a process to implement that, and I think it's important that we all understand how important that process is. I think it directly links to the probability of success of a person if they go through that process. And it's got to be with that person who's going to go into treatment. It can't be. I know we all want to help that person, but they've got to engage in at least that process, so we can make a determination of whether they're likely to be successful or improve their likelihood of success if they can go through that process. So we get a good sense of where they're at individually.
Yeah, to speak to that, so ASAM just updated from ASAM 3 to ASAM 4. ASAM 3 that fell under Dimension 4, which was readiness for change, that has now switched under ASAM 4 to Dimension 6, which is person-centered considerations, which does, it contains that readiness for change, but they reworded it to need for motivational enhancement and then patient preferences and barriers to care. So that's one of the considerations we have to look at when making the determination if they're ready for that inpatient level of care, because we also, if they're not voluntarily engaging or if they have other motivations, such as, an exchange of jail time for treatment time, if they're not buying into the process, then the likelihood of success goes down. And when we're looking at paying for care, we want to take those under consideration as well. So a lot of times when we do have, family or other people reaching out, we do our best to reach out to the individual and engage the individual. But a lot of times what we end up working with is that Dimension 6, where they're not ready to engage, they're not ready for that change. If they're agreeing to go, we usually consider that at least readiness to the degree that we're comfortable sending them. But we definitely want to make sure that that's a voluntary process. And again, that there's not, other motivations coming into play. And legal is the one that comes up the most. But a lot of our providers are trained to, identify if there's other motivations going on, if there may be some levels of manipulation going on. But that is one of the factors that comes into that determination. So it's not just the frequency of use or severity of use by itself.
Danielle?
Sorry, one more thing. So those questions come up all the time to us. How do I get my friend into treatment? How do I get my, family member, my loved one into treatment? Or people asking, how do I go to, for themselves? How, you see them, they're struggling and I want to go to treatment and I don't know how to get there.
Is there a way to create like a cute little like flow chart thing, you know, something like this where we can say, here, this is how you can take yourself and the other side for like a family person, how they can help their loved ones. Can we make like a flow chart so that way I know how to direct them and maybe some of, you know, us, we can help and community.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We can do that.
To that, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, that's an excellent idea, and I think that's something we should probably consider putting in a Charcusta.
Mhm. Yeah,
Because that is
absolutely.
a big question out there that comes up on what do we need to do to get into treatment, and so just a question, and I may have missed this in the conversation. So once one gets an assessment, then what? How long does it take them to get into a treatment if they're motivated to go, they want to go?
Yeah. Once they have that assessment complete, our relationship with Royal Life right now is very smooth. They're usually coming within a day after or a couple days. Like they are very responsive. Once we call and say we have somebody who's approved for care within the state, it's variable. The turnaround within the state, I've seen closer to about a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on their bed availability. We have been moving around away from some of the in-state treatment options based on feedback from our recipients who have not had good experiences there. That is a factor that we have met with some of those treatment facilities about. I have not seen those resolved.
Okay, so in regards to bed availability,
Mhm.
do we have that option to reserve slots in these treatment centers where we can like put 20 beds aside for us?
We have in the past, we don't have any right now. Part of our negotiations with that, some of the asks were cost prohibitive and weren't reasonable and honestly felt a little predatory at the time. But that was also for facilities where our care recipients were identifying they didn't want to go there because they've been there before or they hadn't heard good things about it. There was a lot of discussion around just race-based care treatment, things like that. And that is also why I'm really excited for the Red Shield 8 Nations group moving forward with a treatment center that is Indigenous created and based within the state. But that is still a couple years out. And so for right now, we have focused in on Royal Life. We've gotten really great feedback. It is also our most expensive option. They do have some, I can't remember exactly what they call it. It's like a native track, but it's all Washington based native. But there's been some really good participation with that. Our care recipients really enjoy it. But so that's the facility we've gotten most best feedback from. But there are in-state options that are available and we do exercise those if someone is willing to go.
Okay, so getting somebody into treatment, do we have that responsibility of physically driving these people there? Or do we just say, hey, you got to be over in this town on this date to get into treatment because
So that is also variable. Royal Life has transport and drivers, so they actually come here, pick up individuals, or they arrange for transport. If someone can get, say, to Whitefish to hop on the train and they're going to Lacey, someone will pick them up in Lacey. So we don't have to worry about transportation when they're going to Royal Life. For other facilities in the state, we're either utilizing family. We've had police do transport when needed, but we try and avoid that. But that does become difficult for us to get people there.
Patty?
I think it's important to note that Royal Life is our closest relationship for sending people to treatment and the greatest success. They're responsive. They're here, as Dr. Fox said, within the next day or two to pick up individuals that are going to treatment. On the other hand, they're the most expensive because the tribe has to foot the bill. So even though the patient is eligible and is on Medicaid, Montana Medicaid is not expensed outside of state. So when they don't go to a treatment center here within Montana, the tribe is paying. So that's the other side of the budget that Dr. Fox and her staff are managing.
Martin?
Are there any insurances that cover treatment? That we could quickly enroll people in and get this paid for out of state?
Okay, Carol?
Yeah, I got a call. I went and visited those people in Great Falls, from California. And they said, one girl went down there and they just applied for Blue Cross Blue Shield. And she was covered down there in California. I don't know how that happened, but
Yeah.
they're seeking out other members of the tribe to help.
Yeah, I think we can explore that more, Martin, but I think the lead time, I think, is what creates the challenge. I think it's, if you sign up for insurance, you don't get it right away. It may be the start of the next month or whatever time you complete the application. You may be 10 to 40 days out, depending on when you kind of sign up and then when that insurance kind of picks you up. Often it's the following full month or something to that degree. So, yeah, it is a significant budget item. And I shared that with you when you approved my most recent budget. I add dollars into that inpatient treatment line item. So we are prepared to continue to give folks the care.
Yeah, go ahead, Len.
I just wanted to bring this up. This is one of the dilemmas that the council deals with periodically, and that is our people that are getting out of treatment, and in many cases have nowhere to go. They get here, there's no support system. They have no, in some cases, they have no family, or they've been ousted from their family for whatever. But just something that we got to think about on what we can do when we come across those situations. What can be our plan? Where can we put these people until they can get back on their feet again, and things like that. So I just wanted to mention that. I think that's a really important component of all the treatment things that we're dealing with, you know. So just just wanted to mention that. I don't expect a response, but that we do deal with those situations, and it's just it's a tough deal, you know. We just hate to bring them all the way over here and then put them up in a room and then forget about them. You know, we gotta continue to support these people. So anyway, thank you.
Good point. And if there are no further questions about behavioral health, I did want to circle back on the Medicare B support. Last time I brought in the letter, how do I explain this? I have a list of all the tribal members 65 or over that live in the Chisda. My workflow, I'm at a point where I need to start confirming whether those members are getting paying for Medicare with Social Security or not. So I need to get that request out to that membership so I can start building the list. So the letter I brought in, you asked if I ran it by legal. I ran it by legal. I think I responded to her recommendations. I think she asked about adding some language about depending on funds available. So I added a clause about that. Then she wanted me to further define eligibility. So I think I did that. So I would like to get the letter out so I can start refining the list of folks we're going to issue a reimbursement for their Medicare B premium. I think, I don't know if we've made a decision about whether we pay for 24 as we have that information now, or if we implement it for 25 and we do some kind of payment for their 25 payments. I think that's one of the things we should circle back on too. But but I've got to get, I think if I get that letter out and people who have selected social security to make that payment, a big portion of my work goes away because I've got that confirmation. And then I can work on the folks that maybe have not selected that. Anyway, I feel like I'm behind the ball, not getting the letter out and starting to get some of that information in so we can start fine tuning that list.
But the letter in the package was great. Council's consensus to get the letter out as soon as possible. I know that the elder payment goes out in January. Another one, you could slip the letter in that too, or a second letter. I don't know, reminder. But I think you're right. Your due diligence is let's get it out there and find out what what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. I'll let Greg work on the timing. But I'll build the list serve for that check run if that's where we get.
Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
I got a call from Linda Couture and she was asking why Joe Durglo wants my income verification and social security, what I get in social security.
I would suspect she's Medicare eligible, so we're trying to get that information.
Not for this though.
It would be for Medicare B, I believe.
Oh.
So there's.
She said she's not gonna take it then because she's not giving that information up.
That's fine. We'll give her the opportunity to make that choice. Lost my train of thought.
Well, she'll be eligible, just a matter of what her payment is, right? Everybody's eligible. You're 65 and older. Just your income doesn't have a ramification.
Yeah, part of the work we're doing, and why that might be important is if there are other options to make that premium payment, we want them to be the payer in front of us. So if they're dual eligible, then Medicaid pays that and we don't have to do that. So we want to sort through that environment too. So we may not end up paying for all 916 members. Medicaid may pick up a portion of that.
Absolutely. That's right. Yeah. Danielle?
In the letter, it says you'll need to bring these documents, but it doesn't really state where they need to bring them to. And then in the letter, there's not a spot that says, if you have any questions, please contact so-and-so at this phone number. That might be the only addition I would add into that. It'll save some confusion, I think.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Danielle. Good suggestion.
Council concurrence, get the letter out ASAP, okay? With the edits, modifications like Danielle suggested, if they're missing, okay? I'm excited. Yeah, call Tom.
Oh, sorry.
They're calling me already. Hey, when's that gonna happen, Tom? You said. Yeah, that's what I did.
Tom said, yeah, that's what I've been sharing.
No, right.
Thank you. That's all I have. Maybe in the future we can have a conversation about employee health insurance, how that might benefit the community and employee staff.
Yep. Go ahead, Len.
This is just something that I would like us all to ponder on. I would like to propose that we create an annual budget derived from our opioid settlement funds that we can utilize to help our people in recovery. We've had a lot of instances that people were just needing some help, and we try to send them through the dire need process and all that, and it gets frustrating. But I would just want to start using these funds so we can create some kind of policy and procedures on how we can do this. So just wanted to mention that.
Go ahead, Patty.
So just a friendly reminder to council that you had made the decision for the opioid settlement funds to be placed into investment. So they're locked up for a period of time. I'm not sure exactly how long. The spending is on the interest that comes annually, which I understand is going to average between $125,000 to $150,000. So that's the funds that we have to determine what we would do with it until that maturation date comes on the investment for us to use it for something different.
Thank you. That's all I had. I had one more joke I wanted to share before we left though. What do you call cheese that isn't yours? Nacho cheese, you know?
I did want to add, Patty just reminded me of the average cost to send somebody to Royal Life currently is around $28,000 for the full 12-week program. So that is the 12-week. It includes the detox, partial hospitalization, like that whole, just so you kind of have a number. It's spread at 28. So I always round up to about 30 just to add for any other costs that may come up. But that's our negotiated rate with Royal Life right now.
So the 150 would send 5 people. The interest from, the interest from the opioid funds then would send 5 people. Just if we're to equate it to numbers based on that cost for treatment.
Thank you, Joe. Dr. Fox? Ms. Hibler?
For allowing us time this morning. I think it was really helpful for the department.
All right. Go out there and enjoy the fog. Okay, we still have a few items for the agenda today. Pardon?
Then you have Mark in them, the last item at 3.
Mark's the last one? Okay,
But
so,
you can do the one I gave you.
okay, will John Nice and Lisa still be coming in? We have some board vacancies and some of them we re-advertise for lack of applicants and so we do have a few that maybe council consider just making the appointments now with some incumbents that's been advertised. And the first one I'd like council to maybe consider would be SNK Gaming. 1 vacancy, 3-year term, advertised 2 times. We have 1 letter of interest received, and that's with the incumbent Troy Felsman. So I would certainly entertain a motion if council desires to reappoint incumbent Troy Felsman to the SNK Gaming. Motion by Jimmy, second by Danielle. Any further discussion? All those in favor, show of hands.
Yes.
Let's see, unanimous except Martin's out of the room. So that one's done. We have another one that's an incumbent, the Gaming Commissioner, vacancy, 1 3-year term. That was advertised. There was 1 letter of interest received, and that's incumbent Craig Pablo. Council has an interest to just reappoint him or re-advertise, but if there was a motion to reappoint, I would entertain that also.
Motion.
Motion by Len, seconded by Jimmy to reappoint incumbent Craig Pablo to the Gaming Commission for the 3-year term.
And then the other one, she's just going to re-advertise one more time because there are no incumbents on it. She was just asking.
Okay.
for the
Yeah, that's
incumbent.
right. So the SKC vacancy for the College Board, we don't have an incumbent. We just only had 1 applicant. And so if council wants to have a choice, then you need to re-advertise. Matuga River School is the same way. MVP, there is, that was advertised twice. And there's 2 vacancies and we have 4 interested folks, 2 incumbents and 2 new faces. So we'll have to go through the interview process for that one.
Scheduling those.
Yeah. Same thing with Shoreline Protection Board, except for, I think we're shy 1 person. They're gonna re-advertise that 1 position.
Yeah, but she said she'll do it after you.
She'll bring that back in? Okay.
But the Shoreline has 1 tribal, 1 non-member, and she has 3 applicants for
Right. Okay. So it's council desire, we would re-advertise the SKC board vacancy and keep, of course, the 1 applicant.
The Shoreline, the tribal member and incumbent?
There's, for the Shoreline Board, there's 2 tribal member and 1 non-member vacancies. And you have 1 incumbent.
Did you guys want to approve the 1 tribal member incumbent?
We could.
And she just needs to advertise for the 1.
We could do that. Brad Trosper is the incumbent tribal member for the Shoreline Protection Board. We could appoint him and then narrow that one down. Is that a motion, Carol? Motion by Carol, second by Bing to reappoint incumbent Brad Trosper to the Shoreline Protection Board and re-advertise for the remaining vacancies still. All those in favor?
Yes.
Unanimous. Martin's out of the room. And I should say that Jennifer also left for the remaining of the day, so she's not here. All right. As much as we can do there. Reappointing some incumbents to some of the boards and then re-advertising still for some of the other ones. We still have our last item on the agenda.
You're not up yet.
Little baby.
You 2 aren't up yet.
Oh, it's for you.
You guys are in the back still.
Oh.
And can we go
You guys are booted already.
Can we go into executive?
Geez, I jokes. Yeah, we'll move into executive for the next item with Mark.
I have to make a quick motion. You missed their earlier motion. This is for you, Carol.
All right, we'll we're in open session now, and we have before us a request to do a sole source with Smith Paving to do the sport courts.
Sport courts
at
for the
Harley,
community.
Pablo, Elmo, San Ignatius, and
Rodan. Agency.
and Dixon.
I think agency.
Huh?
Backboards.
Yeah, backboards. Okay. Motion by Martin. Second by Bing. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Yes.
Unanimous. All right. Done deal.
Thank you for your guys' time and patience.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now we are adjourned.